All right, welcome everyone to our new worship space. Yay! We are so glad that you made it. There's a few people trickling in as they figured out a way to transport from the bus station over. Also, we're asking people to, because it's a little chilly and because we need space, to huddle into the centers. So if you have an extra seat, you can huddle so that everybody can fit here. It's not always going to be this temperature, by the way. So today is our first day here. We're going to be experiencing some bumps along the way, but we're making the way forward together. So in just a bit, everything out and back in. So that hymn is wrong, but I want to invite you underneath your chair to turn to your spiral hymnal, hymn number 1. Which is the hymn we sang as we left. It's Gather Us In.
No.
Oh, sorry, Let Us Build a House. Sorry, hymn number 1, Let Us Build a House together. And as we sing, I invite you to rise in body or spirit. As we sing, some of the kids are going to be processing those items that we processed out our last service together in our old space. They're going to be processing those in and setting up the altar right here behind me. So I invite you to stand or rise in body and spirit as we sing together, Let Us Build a House.
Try it again. Good morning. Wow.
I want to invite you to go ahead and have a seat. And I need one more volunteer. Who is a lively volunteer who'd be willing to pass out a few things here this morning? I have Molly over on this side. Don't all jump up at once. Thank you, Todd. If you are willing to read a word out loud, would you raise your hand? And they're going to pass out a little slip of paper with words on there. In just a moment, I'll explain what's going on. One of the things we did, our second to last worship service, is we reflected on our narrative together. We talked about the word Trinity, how we got our name, this idea that it comes from three churches that decided to partner together to form one church community. And in that space, we spoke out some words that from this community that felt these were words, things, attributes, characteristics that it took for these three churches to come together. So I would invite you, we'll take a couple moments here, kind of silence the space, to speak these words out once again as we carry these words with us forward into our future. So if you have one of those words, I want to invite you to speak them out when you feel so led to do.
Love.
Planning. Cooperation.
Openness. Home. Trust.
Belief.
Gratitude, creativity, conviction of purpose, patience, vision, faith,
Tolerance.
change,
Holy Trinity.
change,
Desire.
Continuity.
humility, work, fortitude, compromise,
So these are the things that we called out that birthed our narrative. And these are the things that we grab a hold of as we continue on into a new season, as we venture out together. If you look at your bulletin, I want to invite you at this time to say out loud with me the Lord's Prayer. Let us pray. Giver of life, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Would you turn to your hymn number 79 as we continue to worship? Spirit, open my heart. Please rise and bow your spirit.
Does this work? Yes, it does. It's a fancy one, too. It doesn't have foam on the top. All right. So, again, my name is Christina Weisinger. I have the privilege of serving here on staff at Trinity United Methodist Church. And today I just want to let you all know that coming up on our Family Worship Sunday, starting next month in March, we'll be doing something called Noisy Offering. So it's exactly what it sounds like. There's going to be noise and there's going to be offering. So what we encourage you all to do to support our kids who are not just the church of tomorrow, but they're also the church and the community of love today. We're going to be supporting them and a charity of their choosing by donating coins of all different kinds. You can get rid of all those pennies that you have in your car. And we're going to just have some fun time gathering up all the loose change and putting it towards supporting our Ballard community. So that's coming up, and as you notice, we have our nursery right over here, and right now I think they're building a fort and doing some other fun stuff and coloring. And during the times that we do not have family worship Sundays, the older elementary school kids will be joining me downstairs in the lobby, and most of you entered in through. And we have an area down there where we'll learn and have fun and play games, and hopefully not be too loud, but we'll probably be loud, so we'll see how that goes. Well, that is all the news I have for now, and let's see what's next. We have a scripture reading. If you brought your Bibles, good job. We're turning to, I believe, the book of Matthew. Christine.
So our scripture today comes from Matthew chapter 13, verses 1 through 9. Later that day, Jesus left the house and sat down by the lake shore. Such great crowds gathered that he went and took a seat in a boat while the crowd stood along the shore. He addressed them at great length in parables. One day, a farmer went out sowing seed. Some of the seed landed on a footpath where birds came and ate it up. Some of the seed fell on rocky ground where there was little soil. The seed sprouted at once since the soil had no depth, but when the sun rose and scorched it, it withered away for lack of roots. Again, some of the seed fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it. And some of it landed on good soil and yielded a crop 30, 60, even 100 times what was sown. Let those who have ears hear this. Hear this.
Thank you, Liz. So yes, I am one of those that annoy everyone by all the photos that I take all the time. So I am going to catch a photo of all of you guys and your wonderful faces. So if you're one of those that don't like your photo taken, you can do that little, head nod right now. But I'm going to do let's see if I can capture everybody. I can't fall off. Oh. Okay. Everybody but Roland.
Roland, get in there.
Roland, you want to slide in? All right, let's see what I can do here. All right, you guys look wonderful. Thank you. One of the things, by the way, that our leadership did as we decided where we were going to end up as an interim space. So this space is an interim space. We called it our nomadic time. So for about 6 to 8 months, we're going to be in this space as we discern and move towards our future. We wanted a space that was different, that allowed us to find a little bit of rest, peace, rejuvenation. And so when we walked in here and we saw all the mountains and the water and the ducks and everything else, we were like, what better space? And so I think all of us pretty much said this feels like one of those kinds of spaces. And so we hope and pray that this time of nomadic, this sort of transitional time, is a time where we can rest together. I basically have one question for you all today. Patriots or Rams? How many of you are going for Patriots? Who wants to be daring? Oh, okay. How many of you are going for Rams? Go Rams, go. All right. All right, sorry for you Patriot fans out there. The 3 of you that were here that I now know by name, and I will give those up to everyone else for a price after. So, after several years of discerning and months of lots of work, we are finally here. Now what? Where do we go from here? So today it's more of a family day, which is why I felt, let me just sit and let's be family together, more than it is a sermon. I'm reminded of a book written by Brian McLaren, who our bishop from this district, this conference, the Pacific Northwest, recommended as 2019 as sort of this idea of a crossover year. Not only is Trinity going through a lot of crossover and transitions, but the United Methodist Church too is going through some. And Bishop Stanowski suggested reading this book by Brian McLaren titled, "We Make the Road by Walking It." And that, I think, speaks exactly what we are doing. Where are we going from here? We are going to be making our future together. We are going to be walking into it together, exploring together what that means. Where can you buy that book? Come and find me after, and I'll point you in that direction. I wanted to take a moment to thank people, not by name, because I knew if I did by name, knowing me, I'd forget so many people. But I wanted to point out some of the things that people did. For those who helped us go through all of our stuff, separate into midterm, long-term, nomadic, what we're going to give away, and what is junk, thank you. For those who helped organize the multiple got junk pickups, thank you. For those who helped clean up different areas of ministry, worship, hospitality, the parlor, kids ministry, the nursery, the soup kitchen, our superheroes, the trustees, who somehow got delegated all of the leftover rooms on really 4 stories. There's a basement downstairs with all kinds of junk. Thank you. For those of you who helped volunteer in the 2 sales we had 2 weeks in a row in our gymnasium, thank you. For those who helped label and organize everything for the move day, and some of you who spent 12 hours that day, thank you. For those who helped pick up large items and take them away somewhere, wherever, we don't know, they just disappeared, thank you. For those who helped take apart signs and give them temporary storage, thank you. Thank you to all of you for extending extra grace as we walk through a painful process of purging and transitioning. Because if we're honest, none of us think or operate the same way, and in a setting like that, we bumped into each other sometimes. I wish I could buy everyone a 2-week trip to Hawaii. All of the stuff that you can think of in a 90-year-old building. One of the gems that I picked up that I will keep with me are these fancy things right here called hander pants. I thought about displaying them for you today, but I wasn't sure if that would be too scandalous to wear at church. But now that I think about it, it's bare hands, which might be even more scandalous. So, for those of you who never heard of such thing like me, yes, hander pants, like underpants for your hands. All the things that we found in that church. So we've been talking about transitions a lot, and this idea of seasons, and that our life, really all of our lives, are different seasons of transitions. And we have just walked through a monumental transition as a community. And as we begin to look towards a future together, before we quickly jump into dreaming and planning, talking about where we go from here, I would like to invite us to talk about how we go from here, to begin to prepare the soil of our hearts. Because I think how we go forward is just as important, perhaps more important, than where we go. How we go. So the text that Liz read this morning was about a farmer planting seeds. Some of those seeds fell on fertile soil, took root and grew. Others fell on thorny, hard, or rocky soil. They never were able to bear the fruit that they were intended to bear. I think God continually is planting seeds in the soils of our lives. The Christian mystics all throughout history all point out to this idea that God is the one who plants the seed. We simply receive. And yet at the same time, we do have a role to play, and our role, I think, is cultivating the soil so that when those seeds are planted, they take root and are able to grow. So I'm reading this book at the moment that I love called, the title of it is called Get Weird. It's a great book. And there was a chapter called Farmers in a World of Hunters. And the whole idea is that each of us are weird or unique in our own way. And unfortunately, in society, we are often forced or pressured to fit in, to conform to whatever norm it is. And that is actually in finding your weirdness and uniqueness, that is the gift that we each give to the world. And that too often, we sort of are pressured to conform into a norm, and so we never allow that gift to be farmed, to grow. And then we become hunters. You ever feel like people are out to sort of snipe you? Like anything that's out of the ordinary, anything that's different, watch out, somebody's there, right? Somebody's ready to point out that. The author says this, he says, farming takes careful time. It's slow, abiding work. Anybody feel like this process was slow? But that's what farming is. It nourishes small things that are buried deep, bringing them to life. As we transition, I would like to invite us to continue to see ourselves as farmers. Farmers in a world of hunters. Notice what is going on. So this next month, in February, here's what I'd like to invite us into. A process to begin to just deeply listen. To pay attention and to notice. First, what's going on within ourselves. Then what's going on within others. And third, begin to notice what's going on in Ballard, in the greater Northwest Seattle. So I'd like to talk for a moment about radical hospitality, and then we'll dive in a little bit more about deep listening. So we're in a new space. We are an affirming, inclusive community. And this means that within our DNA is this, it's the celebration of the weirdness that's found within all people, and that God affirms and values that weirdness. And it's not about conformity, it's actually about that weirdness, that diversity that we celebrate together. We've also stopped or paused several key ministries that have been hard to sort of let go or put on pause. And so I also wanted to invite us into, as we begin to explore the future, we are imagining what that might look like in the future. We're also getting in touch with other churches. There's an ecumenical dinner put on by multiple churches in Ballard on Sunday evenings. And we have decided to step on board with that. And so the fifth Sunday of every month, we're joining with them. That fifth Sunday is in March. I think it's the 31st. And you can find Gordon. Do you have a right-wing person that's helping you out right now? All right, so if you want to be that person, come find him. But we are forming that, and who knows what else in the midst of all of this. But, as Ecclesiastes suggests, we're in a different season. And I want to invite us to see a lot of the deep, hard work that we're doing now is starting to listen. To pay attention. So we want to welcome everyone here, right? We want this to be a place of inclusive love. And so how we do that is going to be important. So we're starting a new greeting ministry to welcome people. Again, Gordon is heading that up over there. Gosh, I'm just like singing your praises right here, and you're right there. But I want people to feel welcome because it matters, right? And knowing that when you step into a church, especially for the first time, you're stepping in, you're being courageous, putting yourself out there, probably, not sure, probably been hurt by other churches or religious institutions. Maybe you were told you had to conform. Maybe there's a lot of other things. So how do we live out that welcoming hospitality actually? It's really quite simple. You reach out to people. You ask them questions. You get to know them. It's intimidating, isn't it? Anybody else intimidated meeting new people for the first time? often we're like, well, what if I can't carry the conversation? It's really easy because when you meet people the first time, you know nothing about them, right? All we have to do is be good at asking questions. What's your name? My name's Aaron. Nice to meet you. How did you hear about us? Where are you from? How did you find out? What drew you here? And then introducing them to other people. This is Pastor Aaron. Here's our pastor. He's a little bit weird, but we kind of accept weird here, so that's okay. This is Todd. He's part of worship. This is Jessie. She's our choir director. Here, there's the bathrooms. This is the kids' room. You're a host, right? So what do you do when somebody walks into your house? Do you just welcome? Hey, welcome. Have fun. If they've never been there, or do you show them around, right? This is where everything is. This is our work that we're doing now in this space. And showing them, most important thing, the coffee, right? And the snacks, which technically you're not supposed to have till afterwards, but nobody's really monitoring that. So if you get here early and you're hungry, feel free. So deep listening. That was like a tangent, right? But I really want us, I think hospitality is extremely important. Really, really important. So whether you're on the greeting or not, or you're serving as a greeter that day, I hope this is your space. Think of it as your house. How do we reflect God's love to every single person that walks through these doors? In just simple ways of saying, I value you enough to step out of my own comfort and to ask you a few questions, to introduce you to our weird pastor, whoever else. Say, this is our space. We are creatures who are shaped and formed by the things we do. Our habits or our practices shape and form who we become. For all of us, many of our habits or practices are unconscious. We just kind of do them. Some of them are healthy, some of them not so much. For example, getting out and doing some sort of movement or exercise or walking is healthy for you, yes, right? For your overall well-being. The practice of eating ice cream after every dinner, I have found, yes, not so healthy over time, and a hard habit to break. Ice cream and chocolate chip cookies. If you've worked in the soup kitchen, you know that cookie dough. It's just, draws me right there, right? Chocolate, no, okay. The practice of being in community, whether that's church or small groups or with friends, of kind of putting yourself out there is a healthy practice because it gives us a sense of belonging and support. The practice of isolating ourselves can lead to loneliness, anxiety, and depression. So we cultivate spiritual practices, and those practices then shape who we become, whether we do that consciously or unconsciously. Does that make sense? And really, I would say almost every single habit we do forms us. Part of the struggle is we're often so busy, we're not aware of what those practices are. We don't take time to pause. So over the next several weeks, this is part of that process. How do we pause? How do we take time to listen? So this morning I would like to check in with you. I would like you to check in with yourself. To ask yourself this question. What do you notice about yourself? What feelings, thoughts, emotions come up? Anybody else a journaler here? Anybody else journal? Only a couple, okay, a few people. So I'm an avid journaler. Gotta get that. That's a hard word to say, journaler. Is that even a word? I don't know. It is a word, thank you. So that, over the last week I've been just writing, what do I notice about myself? And just almost like bullet points, just writing down whatever it is, and it's been all over the place, from like something specific, like I'm dealing with this issue, to like just whatever it is, wider. But what comes to your mind? Are you feeling exhausted, frustrated, burnt out, energized, optimistic, concerned, fearful, hopeful, disoriented? if you remember nothing else this morning from me, here's 3 things. You know how I hate those 3 things, and then I end up doing it. But they're actually tangible things. When a preacher says, here's 3 things, but I wanted to give you something tangible to take away. I know I do. I don't know another way around it, but here it is. 1, pause. 2, listen. 3, don't judge. 1, pause. Set aside 10 to 15 minutes this next week, every day if you can, to pause. 2, listen. Ask yourself, what do I notice about myself? 3, don't judge it. Your feelings are there to arise to tell you something, to guide you. So don't judge it. Again, the image of the farmer and the divine planting seeds in the soil of our hearts has been helpful. So let's get really honest for a few moments. Family time, right? If you're a part of this community, this last couple of months have probably been really difficult for a number of reasons. If you're a part of our community, I can almost guarantee that you have experienced some amount of frustration or exhaustion, just the amount of effort in that transition. So here's a question that I want a little bit of feedback. When you are exhausted, or when you feel exhausted, how does it affect you or others? Anybody want to speak up? When you feel exhausted, when you feel tired, when you feel burnt out, how does it affect you?
My temper is short.
Temper is short. Lots of nods. What else? Burden on my partner to take care of me. Grumpy. Hard to focus on anything but that. Irrational. Analyze. Kind of just get in this loop. What's going on? Yeah, hyper-focused on that. Anything else?
Hard to maintain those healthy habits.
Hard to maintain those healthy habits.
Look for shortcuts.
Look for shortcuts. I'm sorry?
It spirals in.
Spirals in.
Really hard to be present.
Really hard to be present. So, I'm willing to bet that almost everyone in this room has felt some of that in this last couple of months, whether it's because of all this transition or because of things in your own life that are going on. So I want to encourage you in this next season, in whatever ways you can, to take some time for yourself. Parker Palmer, who's a Quaker, an author, an educator, says that self-care is never a selfish act. It's actually taking care of the only gift you have to really give to others. You. This community, needs a healthy you. To the best that you are able to do that. And I know there's seasons, there's things outside that are going on that might affect you as well. But as we begin to make the road by walking it, we need you to be the healthiest you. Because what happens if we're exhausted and burnt out and we just start, let's dream and plan, all of those things you guys just called out are going to be erupting, right? We're short with each other. We're reactive. We're not positive. We're thinking differently. So, as your pastor, for February, we're taking February as a time of rest and renewal and rejuvenation. And I hope in whatever ways you can, in your own life, please do that. As we begin to transfer and dream and imagine our future. Some steps that you might need to take. If someone has angered or frustrated you over this past couple months, whether it's in this community or outside of this community, please go to them, work it out, We don't need to carry that forward. If you feel like somebody is holding something against you, go to them and just ask. I didn't do that this last week. I was just like, somebody somewhere I felt might have something. I said, hey, by the way, is there something towards me? Turns out there wasn't. So what does that mean? I don't have to carry that, right? You release that. So as we transition and begin to dream, this is kind of stirring up that soil. Are you with me? The farmer planting that. We want to have ripe, fertile soil in this community, in our hearts, to the best that we are able to. So let's release, let's rest and recover. Let's begin to cultivate the soil of our hearts together. So we change things up of the service, which is something we always do now. It's kind of like the new norm, right? But it's weird, and that's okay. Weird is good. I think I should capture that motto. Weird is good. But I want to invite the choir to come forward. And instead of going into communion and then choir, as we are in this new space and we get to rest and renew, I wanted their gifts, their voices, to be a way to receive. For you to be able to rest, renew, to allow this song and the words within this song to bring you peace and healing in your life.